This is NDTV, and you're watching Classics.
Hello and welcome to Born Wild, the show that takes you to the heart of wild India, takes you up close and personal to some of India's most endangered animals and the people who help them fight for their survival. In today's episode, we visit the village Kokrebellur, which is in Karnataka. Kokrebellur, aptly named the village of storks, is called so because every year for about 6 months of each year it becomes home to thousands of painted storks and spot-billed pelicans. These birds come here to nest and raise their young for about 6 months out of every year. The villagers here have forgotten for over hundreds of years if whether the birds came first or if the village was established first. But as in everything that happens with development and modernization, things are changing even here in Kokrebellur, and this fine balance and companionship that was established between the birds and the people is slowly being challenged. But for the last decade, a dedicated group of conservationists have been trying to bring back that old tradition, have been trying to bring back the idea of conservation, and have been working here to ensure that this companionship does not break. So come with us to Kokrebellur. It's a morning, like any other over a small village in Karnataka. Life goes on as usual. Farmers getting ready to leave for their fields, bullock carts on the roads, women washing clothes in vessels, and children playing or getting ready to go to school. A bucolic calm everywhere except Kokrebellur is an exceptional village. Every year for about 6 months of the year, storks and pelicans visit this village to give birth to and raise their young ones. The exact history has been lost in the mists of time, but for over 200 years, the birds have been coming here and nesting here. Old-timers remember the birds from their childhood, and their great-grandparents had stories to tell of the birds. But the one prevalent sentiment was that the birds are the daughters of the village. Girls who have come home to have their children must always be treated with the utmost respect and affection, their arrival seen as a blessing on the village.
According to the villagers, you just can't make out whether the birds came first or the villagers. So it's been there. So they just believe the story of their forefathers. And this association has given them a feeling that these birds are daughters of the village. And the traditional practice in the South India is that you send out your daughters, marry them off to another village. And during the pregnancy, they come back to their parents' home. And that's how they treat the birds. So they still have this sentiment, and if by chance there's no birds a particular year, they think it's a bad omen for the village. So this sort of feeling, traditional feeling they have, has bound the birds and the human beings.
ಇನ್ನೆಲ್ಗೂ ಹೋಯ್ತಿರ್ಲಿಲ್ಲ, ಇಲ್ಲೇ ಇರಬೇಕು. ಅವು ಇನ್ನೆಲ್ಗೂ ಹೋದವಲ್ಲ, 6 ತಿಂಗಳು ಹೋಗ್ಬೇಕು, 6 ತಿಂಗಳು ಬರಬೇಕು. ಇಲ್ಲಿ ಕಾವಲು ಕಟ್ಟು ಇರಲಿಲ್ಲ ಈಗಿನಾಗೆ. ಇಷ್ಟು ಒಂದು ತೀರೋಯ್ತಿರ್ಲಿಲ್ಲ. ಗಾಳಿ ಮಳೆ ಬಂದ್ರೆ ಮಾತ್ರ ಬಿದ್ದು ಗಿದ್ದು ಹೋಯ್ತಿದ್ದು ಅಷ್ಟಲ್ಲದೆ ಇನ್ನೊಂದು ಹೋಯ್ತಿರ್ಲಿಲ್ಲ. ಏನು ಎಲ್ಲ ಚೆಂದಾಗಿ ಮಕ್ಕಳು ಸಾಕೊಂಡು ಮನೆಗೆ ಹೋಯ್ತಿದ್ದು. 6 ತಿಂಗಳು ಎಲ್ಲ ಸರಿಯಾಗದೆ. ಎಲ್ಲ ಏನೂ ತಪ್ಪಿಲ್ಲ ಕಣವ. ಎಲ್ಲ ಅವರಿಂದ ನಮ್ಗೇನು ತಪ್ಪು ಅನ್ನಿಲ್ಲ. ಎಲ್ಲ ನಮ್ಗೆ ಉಳ್ತಾ ಇದೆ. ಅವ್ರ ಗೊಬ್ಬರದಿಂದ ನಮ್ಮ ಬೆಳೀತದೆ. ಅವ್ರು ನಮ್ಮ ದಾಸ್ ಮಾಡಿದ್ರು, ನಮ್ದು ಹಂಗಾಯ್ತು, ನಮ್ದು ಹಿಂಗಾಯ್ತು, ಈ ಬಸ್ತೇವು ಇಂತೆವು ಅಂತೆವು ಅನ್ನೋ ಹೋಗ್ಸಾರ್ ಬರಲಿಲ್ಲ. ಯಾರು ಒಂದು ಮಗು ಒಂದು ಕಲ್ಲಿಡಲಿಲ್ಲ, ಏನೂ ಇಲ್ಲ. ಎಲ್ಲ ಸುಖವಾಗಿ ಸಾಕೊಂಡು ಆ ಮಕ್ಕಳು ಅಪ್ಪನ ಮನೆಗೆ ಬಂದಂಗೆ ಬರ್ತಾರೆ, ಅಪ್ಪನ ಮನೆಗೆ ಹೋದಂಗೆ ಹೋಯ್ತಾರೆ ಅಷ್ಟೇ. ಎಲ್ಲ ಸರಿಯಾಗದೆ. ಇದು ಇವತ್ತಿನ ತಲೆದಲ್ಲ, ಇದು 10 ತಲೆಯಿಂದವೇ.
Kokrebellur in itself, the name means village of storks. This year, there are over 4,000 painted storks here and 1,000 spot-billed pelicans. Every tree here is abuzz with them. The interesting thing is that although there are several villages in the area and many with more trees, the birds come to nest only in this village. In fact, as one old-timer tells us, in 1916 the village shifted here because there was a plague in the earlier location, and the birds followed them. The painted storks are distributed throughout India, Bangladesh, Pakistan, Sri Lanka and Burma. Here you can also find the spot-billed pelican or the grey pelican. chiefly grayish-white with short, stout legs and large webbed feet. The enormous, heavy, flattened bill is underlined throughout its length by an elastic bag of dull purplish skin. They are found in well-watered tracts throughout India, Bangladesh, Pakistan, Sri Lanka and Burma. The birds nest in 2 tiers, the pelicans on the top of the canopy and the painted storks in the lower branches. The pelicans like to crowd together to nest, as when they incubate their chicks and the babies hatch, the additional body warmth of the adults keeps all the chicks safe. Painted storks are less crowded together. Both sets of parents in these birds help to look after the young ones, which is the usual style for dimorphous birds, or birds in which there is no marked difference in appearance between the male and the female. Both painted storks and pelicans, the males and the females look very alike, except for the fact that males are usually bigger and have larger beaks as well. They're devoted parents and spend their entire day feeding their young ones, who are voracious eaters. Baby chicks consume copious amounts of food, as that helps growth and keeps them warm. In fact, at an adolescent stage, they get to be heavier than their parents. Pelicans feed their young directly, while the painted storks regurgitate the food onto the nests, which is why every year the pelicans destroy their nests once the young ones have grown, while painted storks tend to preserve theirs and only do repairs. The birds spend their first few days in the village looking around for good nest building material. This could be twigs, leaves, hay, cotton, and it's hard work. They grab everything they need in their beaks, breaking and twisting things, and then fly back and forth from the nesting site to various places to get the material. Both males and females build the nests. Both birds are fish eaters mainly, and it is surprising their choice of location, as there are no water bodies within the village and the birds have to fly a good distance to get their fish. We drove up to one of the water bodies and saw several pelicans swimming about. The Simsa River and a few other ponds in the vicinity provide the endless supply of fish these waterfowl require during the breeding season. While painted storks are approaching the threatened status, spot-billed pelicans are already globally endangered birds. Kokrebellur is one of its just 5 nesting sites in the world. The success rate of breeding depends directly on the availability of water and food, as with any other animal. Even then, the ratio of survival for the chicks is 1.6 chicks per nest. The birds automatically seem to know which year might be a year of drought, and usually that year only small numbers arrive or no birds at all, as they choose then to skip their breeding cycle. Obviously a reason why farmers dread not seeing the birds in their trees in the village. Kokrebellur is a preserve for the birds, but they're not so protected outside and often get shot and end up on people's dinner table. The village once captured and beat a group of people who tried to hunt the birds. In this village, it is possible to get close to the birds if one is dressed as a villager. There is a rare trust which is admirable. We watched as a man repaired the roof of his house fairly close to where the birds were nesting, and there was no panic. The birds are also used to the rhythms of village life, and no loud noises or loudspeakers or anything scares them. The villagers are also protective, and they do not allow outsiders like us too close to the birds, which is why there are no observation towers or ladders to climb to get closer to the birds. When the birds nest, they're protective of their young, and a frightened or startled parent, if they leave the nest, there is a huge danger of the chick being exposed. When the chicks are born, they're not even covered with feathers and can die easily from exposure, and they're an easy picking for birds of prey like eagles and kites.
ಪಕ್ಷಿಗಳು ತೊಂದರೆ ಮಾಡಲಿ ಏನೇ ಮಾಡಲಿ ಅವು ನಮ್ಮ ಮಕ್ಕಳಂಗೆ ಉದ್ದಕ್ಕೂ ಕಾಪಾಡ್ಕೊಂಡು ಬಂದವರೇ ನಮ್ಮ ಹಳ್ಳಿಗರು ಹಿಂದ್ಲಿಂದಲೂ. ಈಗ ಅವು ತೊಂದರೆ ಅದೇ ಕೆಲವಕ್ಕೆ ನಾವು ಕೀರೆ ಚೆಲ್ಲಿದ್ರೆ ಅದ್ರ ಮೇಲೆಲ್ಲ ಪುಕ್ಕ ಅದು ಇದು ಉದುರ್ತದೆ, ಪುನಃ ಮನೆಗಳ ಮೇಲೆಲ್ಲ ಹುಚ್ಚುತ್ತವೆ. ಆದರೂ ನಮ್ಮ ಮಕ್ಕಳಂಗೆ ಅವು ನಮ್ಮ ಮಕ್ಕಳು ಇದು ಮಾಡಿದ್ರೆ ನಾವು ಸುಮ್ಮನೆ ಆಗೋದಿಲ್ವೇ, ಹಂಗೆ ನಾವು ಕಾಪಾಡ್ಕೊಂಡು ಬಂದ್ವಿ. ಈಗ ಸರ್ಕಾರದಿಂದ ನಮಗೆ ಯಾವ ಇದೂ ಇಲ್ಲ. ಅವರು ಬಂದು ಪ್ರವಾಸೋದ್ಯಮ ಮಾಡಿ ಇಲ್ಲಿ ಬೇಕಾದಷ್ಟು ದುಡ್ಡು ಖರ್ಚು ಮಾಡಿ ಮನೆಗಳು ಕಟ್ತಾ ಇದ್ದಾರೆ ಹೊರತು ಈ ಪಕ್ಷಿಗಳಿಗೆ ಅವಾಗ ಮೀನು ಸಿಕ್ಕೋದು ಪಕ್ಕದಲ್ಲೇ, ಪುನಃ ಮರಿಗಳು ಬಿದ್ದರೆ ಅವನ್ನು ಸಾಕೋಕ್ಕೆ ಪ್ರಾಣ ಉಳಿಸೋಕ್ಕೆ ಏನು ವ್ಯವಸ್ಥೆ ಮಾಡಲಿಲ್ಲ. ಪುನಃ ಈ ಎಲೆಕ್ಟ್ರಿಕ್ ಪ್ರೈಮರಿ ಲೈನ್ ಹೋಗೋದೆ, ಅದಕ್ಕೆ ಸಿಕ್ಕಂಡು ಪಕ್ಷಿಗೆಲ್ಲ ಸಾಯ್ತಾವೆ. ಅಲ್ಲಿ ಗೂಡಿನಲ್ಲಿ ಮರಿಗಳು ಅನಾಥವಾಗಿ ಸಾಯ್ತವೆ. ಆ ಪ್ರೈಮರಿ ಸೆಕ್ಷನ್ನ ಬೇರೆ ಯಾವ ಕಡೆನೂ ಬದಲಾಯಿಸಲಿಲ್ಲ. ಅದೆಲ್ಲ ಇವು ಪಕ್ಷಿಗಳಿಗೆ ಭಾರಿ ತೊಂದರೆ ಆಯ್ತಾ. ಅದು ಅವ್ರು ದುಡ್ಡು ಖರ್ಚು ಮಾಡಿರೋದು ಪಕ್ಷಿ ಉಳಿಸೋಕೆ ಸಂಕುಲನ ಉಳಿಸೋಕೆ ಮಾಡಲಿಲ್ಲ, ಸುಮ್ಮನೆ ಜನಗಳ ಉಪಯೋಗಕ್ಕೆ ಮಾಡ್ಕೊಂಡವ್ರು ಅಷ್ಟೇ.